Good morning, everyone, and welcome to PC Radio Live. It's Friday. It's the Friday before Super Bowl 58. This long wait, we were talking about the long wait yesterday, but this long wait is finally over. Just a couple more days until we get what I hope to be is a pretty, really good, actually, Super Bowl. I mean, we got arguably the two best teams from each conference. Maybe not the one seed in the AFC, but obviously it's the Chiefs, so you're not getting shortchanged there with them. And obviously the 49ers have been one of the best teams, if not the best team in the league all season. And really for the last half decade or so, they just haven't gotten over the hump. So the question is, John, are they going to finally get over the hump this year? We're going to answer that.
We'll keep the suspense there, right? We won't give our picks till the very end of today's show, but
we want to keep you sucked in.
They are the Celtics of the NFL. I mean, the Celtics and the 49ers the last half decade are incredibly similar. Most talented roster. They get to the conference finals. Now the 49ers are in their second Super Bowl. You expect the Celtics to get to their second NBA finals in June with this group. And in both cases, when they were there in the finals before, in the Super Bowl before, they had leads. Like Cam Crane was up 10 with 12 minutes left against Kansas City 4 years ago, and the Celtics were up 2-1 and up 5 with 3 minutes left in Game 4. If they win that game, they probably win that series, and the team could kind of seal the deal. So if you're a Celtics fan, root for the 49ers on Sunday, because that bodes well for the Celtics doing what they're supposed to do in June.
Yeah, surprisingly, they both went cold going deep too, if you think about it. Celtics couldn't hit a three, and Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't hit a pass beyond 5 yards. So it's kind of unfortunate, but you're right.
That pass that the incompletion he threw, right?
Yeah, the overthrow, right?
The overthrow by 5 yards. It was like a 65-yard throw. And was it Manny Sanders was the receiver? I believe Emmanuel Sanders.
I think,
if I can remember, he didn't exactly look like he sold out either. I know I always very protective of my Faison,
of course,
in the NFL, Jimmy Garoppolo, but they make it sound like he was 5 feet away from the guy and he threw it into the stands.
By the standards of elite quarterback play, it was a bad throw. I mean, you can't and this is my thing with people who are enamored with arm strength. It's like, what good is arm strength if you're not accurate? I don't care if you can throw over the mountains. Like what does that matter if you can't hit the target? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And that was kind of the deal with Jimmy Garoppolo, because it was a deep pass. It looked nice aesthetically. It looked nice, but it just was not accurate. And that's kind of really. And there's obviously other plays that led to them losing that game, but that was the one that obviously stuck out the most. In terms of well, you complete that pass, the game's over. You win the Super Bowl. You pretty much ride out the rest of the clock. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I do think they have a quarterback that can make that throw if necessary or if needed. If the 49ers are up 10 in the fourth quarter, I have plenty of faith that Brock Purdy can make the throws that they're going to need to close out that game. And that was something I just never really felt with Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, I hope we have confidence in Kyle Shanahan to call the right play. I'll go back to that Super Bowl 4 years ago. They're up 10, and in the fourth quarter, they throw 12 passes and only run the ball 3 times. And again, Kansas City got back in that game with 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, so I'll give them some credit for that. But and he did this against the Patriots as the offensive coordinator with the Falcons back in Super Bowl 51. He has a tendency of he's going for the kill, but you've got to lead, play the clock a little smarter. We can go back to the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. It's 28-20. You hit the ball at the 21-yard line, 2nd and 11. No clock and get a field goal, go up 11. The game is over, right? Instead, Matt Ryan gets sacked. There's a penalty. They get out of field goal range, and next thing you know, the Patriots are celebrating in overtime. So, situational football. That to me is what always made Bill Belichick such a great coach. Situational football, understanding where you are in the game, is so critical. It seems like Kyle Shanahan in these big moments is like stuck on, well, I'm going to prove how smart I am, instead of just let's get this thing done. Maybe he's changed a little bit because I think we saw that in the last two playoff games where he was coming from behind and he was able to execute some good game plans. And again, he had the quarterback that made the plays.
And look, I mean, third time's a charm, all right. He's finally going to have an opportunity. This is it. Third time, right. In a Super Bowl. Obviously, second time as a head coach. But the opportunity is there, and I think, this is a game that, the 49ers, they're not playing underdog here. This isn't this Chiefs team is really good. I'm not saying they're not, but well, I mean, the 49ers might be playing underdog. You know what I'm saying, though. They're not a team. They're not a notch below the Chiefs. If anything, you can make an argument that maybe they're a little bit better than the Chiefs. Regardless, this matchup should be really good, and I really don't, have reservations about their quarterback. Like I said, like I did before with Jimmy Garoppolo. Because even in that situation where they're up 10, you're sitting there thinking like, oh my God, I mean, this doesn't bode well, because it's like you're up 10, but it's like you had opportunities to close it out. Like, look, go back 2 weeks ago almost in the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs really were kind of shut down offensively for a majority of that game, and give them credit because, they came out really well, did what they had to do, got the points, and really sat on that lead the entire game because, well, the Ravens couldn't do anything on their end. But, the 49ers, it's going to sound odd because the Ravens beat the 49ers and handled them pretty well. But I don't think the 49ers are just going to sit there and look befuddled on offense, because that's what the Ravens did. They looked lost and looked like they had zero confidence. And a lot of that was coming from their quarterback. Now, again, a large part of it was the play calling. Like, why aren't you doing the things that he does well and attacking the weaknesses of the Chiefs? I think the 49ers will be able to do that, and I think they're going to do it consistently.
Be who you are, right? I mean, Baltimore can run the football, including with their quarterback, Lamar Jackson, the league MVP, and they almost tried to turn him into a pocket passer in that game. Like, let him be who he is. San Francisco's a team that has a really balanced offense. If at the end of the game Christian McCaffrey has 11 carries, you're going to scratch your head and said, what the hell happened? I kind of remember back to Super Bowl 36, watching the game and saying, why are the Rams shutting out their own best player? I mean, Kurt Warner obviously was right his attention as best player, but Marshall Faulk, like, use him more. Like, this guy is at that point maybe the best player in the league. Sometimes coaches try to outsmart everyone rather than just do what they're good at. And I use this phrase a lot. Sometimes it just makes more sense to play checkers rather than chess.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's a great thing about football, and one of the things that, we're seeing it happen when teams play the Chiefs, and we saw it for years when teams play the Patriots. They I don't want to say they beat themselves, because the Patriots were more than capable of beating them on their own, but they did so many things that you were just scratching your head, like, why would you do these things? But part of it is the psychology of the game. You're going at franchise of the era, and right now that's the Chiefs. So if you're a team like the 49ers who has all this pressure, and you're Kyle Shanahan and you have all this pressure, and you're finally in it, you're like, oh, we finally get a chance again to beat the Chiefs. Are you going to overthink things? Are you going to let them, because that's why the Chiefs and teams like the Patriots were so good for so long, was they just sit back and let these teams eventually get in their own head and make the mistakes that they wouldn't make, and they would capitalize on it. And that's what the Chiefs do great, and that's what the Patriots did for so many years, was wait to let them make a mistake and then capitalize it. It's like it's like a boxer, and a great boxer who, will sit there and he'll go jab for jab, let the other guy kind of tire himself out a little bit, and then all of a sudden he'll attack when he's weakest. And that's exactly what the Chiefs do. That's exactly what the Patriots have done. And it's the 49ers' job to make sure they don't overthink themselves and exhaust themselves, so to speak, and get to a point where now all of a sudden the tide is turned and you're just grasping for air at this point.
Little rope-a-dope, right? Or be like the tennis player who just gets the ball back. You're on clay at the French Open, let the other player make the mistake. And look, there's been 57 prior Super Bowls. Only 4 times has a team come back from a double-digit deficit to win. No surprise, twice with Tom Brady, twice with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
So I think you're so accurate in saying that, Ian, that oftentimes the other team's quarterback tries to play outside of their own comfort zone.
They feel the pressure.
They're going up against those guys. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, when it was 28-3 against the Falcons are on the sideline going, yeah, they got Tom Brady. It's not over yet. So it's in your head.
Right.
So that's what makes those guys, great quarterbacks.
Yeah. And look, I mean, it's again, I mean, Chiefs fans, settle down. I compliment Patrick Mahomes. Don't worry, I'm not always that negative. I know people like to think I am, but the reality of it is, you make a great point. I mean, there's a reason why only 2 guys have done it, and they've done it twice. I mean, there's just something about each of them that they understand and don't really get to. The moment doesn't become too big. Now, again, if you're going to sit here and ask me who's better, I'm going to obviously still say Brady, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that Patrick Mahomes has some of the rare qualities that makes Brady so great. And look, I don't know if you heard the clip. Brady's been I think he's starting to really show his chops when it comes to giving really articulate opinions when it comes to especially quarterback play, of course, which is making a lot of people a little bit more excited to see him take over a prominent role analyzing the game because, look, I mean, the guy's the greatest quarterback, and you can argue greatest football player of all time. Certainly the smartest or one of the smartest. It's probably going to be pretty cool to listen to him speak on a week-to-week basis. And, if his insight is anything close to what he's been giving, I think it's very valuable. He talks about, and this is something I probably like it, one, because it kind of echoes a lot of the things I've been saying. He just says it a lot more better, John, because his English is good.
Good English. Well,
good English.
The thing is, Montana, when Joe Montana was hired by, I think it was NBC at the time, he was the greatest quarterback ever. He was horrible. He didn't do games. He was on the set. But I think Brady can show more of a personality than Montana.
His the point that he was making, he was talking to Steve Young, which again, I mean, I think guys that, I could sit there and listen to talk about the dynamics of quarterback play. But he was kind of echoing a lot of the same things where it's like, nowadays people and everyone's enamored with the athleticism and, again, saying a lot of the same things that I've said, that like people get all excited about this athletic play and running around and scrambling and completing the pass when the quarterback's inefficiencies at the beginning of the play kind of created that situation. So, Brady's sitting there scratching his head like, his critique was that quarterbacks aren't recognizing and diagnosing defenses before the snap. They're just relying on reactionary, what happens after, and you don't have a pass. So his point was the reason the quarterback's scrambling like they are is because they didn't recognize and didn't call out of the play that they were supposed to. So if, his example was, a coach is going to call a play based on percentages and what they think the other team's going to do. So if they call a play with a man coverage or whatever in mind, but they come up and cover 2, well, why are you going to keep with that play? And what Brady's saying is a lot of these young quarterbacks are sticking with that play and then just trying to improvise with their athleticism. And that's not great quarterback play. Sometimes it works and you're going to create some highlights out of it, but it's not great quarterback play. So his thing is you should be able to diagnose it and then change the play or alter the play to attack that particular defense and beat them before the ball is snapped. And that is something that is leading to a lot of this kind of mediocre play across the board. And there's very few quarterbacks that do what Brady says on a consistent basis, if any. I mean, like I said, we talk about, where quarterback play was, just a handful of years ago with some of the greats and where a guy like only Patrick Mahomes would even you would consider cracking that list. I mean, that kind of speaks to a lot of it. And look, I think Brady's right. And look, I'm a little bit biased. One, because he's saying a lot of the things that I've been saying, and he's a pretty smart guy. And 2, it's Tom Brady, so of course I'm going to be biased towards that. But I think he makes a great point.
Doesn't that take time, though? I mean, it takes time for quarterbacks to learn to do that.
Part of that,
the top quarterbacks are so young.
Yeah, so, but part of that too is he kind of, he talked about that, is that one of the things is these kids are just getting thrown into situations when they're not ready.
Right.
And
oh yeah, I mean,
and
even he's at the first year of
right.
his career.
And like, so again, a lot of he's not just, so yeah, so there is that aspect of it. But again, I mean, there's a lot of good points to it, because at a certain point, like, if Mac Jones came into the league and sat for 2 seasons behind a veteran quarterback and just learned the game of football, maybe he's a lot better adjusted, certainly mentally. And a lot of this goes back to mental too. And Brady added to that. He's like, the game's so much more mental than athleticism. And look, I mean, he's the prime example of it. Like, people talk about, all the time, like, he wasn't, he couldn't scramble and throw off. Off platform is becoming one of, like, my biggest, like, it just grinds my gear. That phrase just irks me, because I don't think anyone understands exactly what it means to be off platform, So, first of all, Brady doesn't or wouldn't throw off platform, John. You know why? Because he has great mechanics. And if you have great mechanics, you're not going to be in a situation to have to do that. And what people don't understand is they think that's a sign of superior quarterback play. And much like what Brady was talking about in terms of the athleticism aspect, you're throwing off platform in most cases, John, because you've made a mistake earlier in that sequence. And there's a reason for that. If your mechanics aren't sound and consistent, well, you're going to be in a situation where you're, quote unquote, throwing off platform, and it's just not a good situation. Some quarterbacks can make plays on it, but it's not it's not happening all the time, and it's certainly not a thing you can consistently keep up over and over and over again.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, he's got a PhD in quarterbacking, obviously. And a lot of these young guys are trying to learn, but you're right. They get drafted high, they get put into the situation right away. And, the mental aspect of quarterbacking is much more difficult in pro football than it is in college. Although I think they do a pretty good job of preparing quarterbacks in college now, because the offenses are more sophisticated than they were, say, 20 years ago.
And there are more parallels to the NFL game. You remember, it was it was completely different coming from college into the NFL game, where it's like you had to, like, learn something completely new. Now it's a lot of the same concepts, because the games are, the college game was always open, not only in terms of rules, but competitive balance. So it created a lot of, high flying, high powered offenses, where in the NFL, the competitive balance was a little bit, the margin of error was a lot smaller, and everything was, you couldn't do that. Plus, again, it was a not running heavy, but I don't even dare to say running centric, but there was a lot more emphasis on that. And then, of course, the rules. The rules, you just couldn't
No, it was, well, my weekly Burt Jones reference. When he was at LSU, they never threw the football. He was running like a wishbone.
Yeah,
I mean, talk about a waste of talent. And then he gets to the NFL. He had to learn how to play the position. It took him a few years, and then he took off. Whereas now quarterbacks are coming in and they're playing in systems that are very close to the NFL. In fact, the NFL will take a lot of the concepts and schemes from college football. So and even high school is more sophisticated than it was years ago. So so in that sense, they should be better prepared. But now the defenses are getting more sophisticated as well. And again, the talent level is just that much wider.
But I also,
that's a great point you make too about Mac Jones. Like, let's use Mac Jones' example. Like, how can you even judge what he was at Alabama? He was throwing 4 first-round picks at wide receiver, and had 4 first or second-round picks blocking for him. I mean, he literally had better talent in Alabama than he had with the Patriots.
Yeah,
and he was playing the Citadel. So I mean, he's got guys running wide open. It's pretty easy to complete passes there. Where in the NFL, you got to throw into some tighter windows, and the speed of the defense is that much greater.
And look, I think also part of it too is the talent evaluators and the how the game's covered. So again, I think there's far too great an emphasis on athleticism when it comes to quarterback play, and I think that causes this. You get to a point where you just you don't know how to evaluate these quarterbacks. How do you want? Are they good? People think they're good because they're athletic, but they're not evaluating the right things. And it's kind of puzzling to me, because it's like we see it over and over and over again, and it's like I think everyone understands that the quarterback position is so much more mental, and it's like athleticism could mean nothing when it comes to quarterback play. I mean, there's plenty of athletic guys that played the position and they weren't great quarterbacks, So I think, unfortunately, people, especially in the media and how the game's covered, are like, they'll get far more hype to a crazy, quote unquote, looking throw or insane, one of these adjectives to describe it, throws, as opposed to just steady, great quarterback play. I mean, it's one of the reasons why people don't, one of the gripes they have about Brady was he wasn't flashy enough. Well, I have you seen his hand with 7 rings? I think that's pretty flashy. I'm not going to lie, but the point is, it's like, again, they're enamored and focusing on the wrong things, and I think that unfortunately, it creates narratives and how we look at different quarterbacks and everything like that, and how we evaluate and judge who's good and who's not. Because, like I said, I mean, obviously, like, there's a lot of things you can't judge about a quarterback. Like, in hindsight, if people knew what Brady and even Brock Purdy were, do you think they'd go as late as they were? No, of course not.
No,
of course not. But someone actually shared sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but someone shared a clip recently from a college broadcast. It was Brady a comeback against Penn State, and they interviewed him. And this is where it's like, look, obviously, there's no mistaking the impact that Belichick had on Brady, but the idea that he created him has always not like sat well with me, because if you go back and listen to him in college, he's the same exact guy. I mean, he uses the same verbiage, he has the same humility and same just mindset, and the kid's 20 years old, so. To me, and he said it before, he was a bit of a late bloomer, but those instincts and that ability was innate. He didn't learn that stuff. He honed it. He got better at it, and I think that's part of what he was talking about in terms of how some quarterbacks are going to need it. Some are going to step onto the field and adjust to the NFL game, certainly more now than ever, because again, like we were talking about, these games are so similar. But even Peyton Manning, John, he stepped on the field and he was relatively great, but it even took him a little time to really adjust to the game. And nowadays, I think that learning curve is a little bit easier, a little bit not as steep, but at the same time, and this is something also that I've talked about, it can give you kind of false hope and create situations where, yeah, maybe a young quarterback comes in and has a great first season, maybe 2, but then that's it. And that gives the teams false sense of security when it comes to great quarterback play. And that's an issue that I think teams have to navigate as well.
Well, and also there's a lot of pressure and there's not enough time to let these quarterbacks marinate. I mean, I've said it a million times. In his first 6 playoff games, Peyton Manning was 2-4. The same thing as Lamar Jackson. They both had 2 MVPs while they had 2-4 playoff records. Yet I think Peyton Manning was allowed to continue on and finally break through, win a Super Bowl, and then win another one late in his career, final season in his career. Whereas Lamar Jackson is down, well, this guy will never win. Well, how can you say that? Like, I mean, he maybe it takes a little time for certain quarterbacks to have it go off, and you just find the right time and you play the right game. It just, you have to, there's a lot of pressure on these guys because it's just like there's a narrative that gets changed like every single day. I mean, we're talking about with Patrick Mahomes. If he wins Sunday, he's 3-1 in Super Bowls. This guy's incredible. He's the 3rd greatest quarterback of all time. If he loses to Brock Purdy, it's going to be, well, he's 2-2 in the Super Bowl, and he didn't play great in the 2 wins, and maybe he's not what we think he is. Like, this is the narrative we have because there's changing talking points every single day with these athletes.
No, but absolutely, and we'll, like you said, when we get back here on Monday, we'll have plenty, I'm sure, to talk about, plenty of narratives to push and discuss. But all right, so we had some plans to talk about some other things, but that obviously went by the wayside as soon as we started talking about quarterbacks.
Well,
and
you
all
brought
this.
Up Tom Brady.
Well,
so 15 minutes down the
Niagara Falls. Slowly I turn.
Yeah.
But,
Groundhog Day.
Right. But it is time to give our picks. We've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. We've known the game, we've known the matchup, we've seen it before. A couple different players, but we've seen the matchup before just a few years ago. I do think the 49ers win this game. I don't think it's going to be easy. They, if they start slow again, though, I don't know if they're going to be able to recover like they did against the Lions. I think they can't afford to do that. I think you have to attack this Chiefs offense because, as we've seen, the Chiefs offense is kind of a 1-2 quarter surge, and that's about it. And that's really what they've been for the majority of the season. So I don't believe they can put it together for 4 straight quarters. So I think it's imperative for the 49ers to come out, attack early and be successful. And that means running the ball. And I think ultimately that's going to lead to Christian McCaffrey being the Super Bowl MVP because, again, I think they'll watch what the Ravens didn't do and hear the criticism of the Ravens play calling. And I can't imagine that they're going to go away from that. And like I said, then in your back pocket, you have a quarterback that can make the throws when you need him to make it. And you know what? They didn't have that before in Jimmy Garoppolo. They have it in Brock Purdy. But like I said, I think the excuse me, I think the 49ers are going to win. I'd say 28-24, something like that. Oh, Joel, same score, just reverse teams winning. 28-24, Christian McCaffrey, Super Bowl MVP.
I've got McCaffrey winning the Super Bowl MVP. I've got the 49ers winning 27-20. I was thinking even more of a more comfortable win, but Kansas City, even when they lose, generally don't get blown out, except for the Super Bowl 3 years ago. I think part of this is the mentality of the teams. I think the bye week is going to help San Francisco more than it helps Kansas City. Kansas City's been on a roll since the end of the regular season. They had to win an extra game to get here. I think the fact that maybe if they're banged up or tired, may catch up with them now. Sometimes you know how it is. You're going, and you just keep going. And then when you get a little bit of a break, you kind of scale back a little bit, and then you start to feel tired. The 49ers, I think, could use this, maybe get their defensive line a little healthier, which is underperformed pretty much all season. If they can have their B-plus game, I think they'll get into, not to the head of Patrick Mahomes, but they'll cause some issues there. I also think this whole Super Bowl is about the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Mahomes is tracking Brady, and is Kelsey the greatest tight end ever? Is Andy Reid going to retire if they win? And, oh, by the way, there's Taylor Swift hovering over the whole proceedings. Meanwhile, the 49ers are practicing at UNLV on some field that they're complaining about. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. Even though they're the favorite, I think they're going to try to paint themselves kind of like the way the Patriots did 20 years ago. Rodney Harris saying, no one believes in us, right? Even though they're the favorite in the game, I think that's going to be their mentality, and I think they're going to win 27-20.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about both of these teams trying to play the underdog card. It's like no one believes that. I understand it. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I didn't have a problem with Rodney Harrison doing it, but like I always chuckle. I always chuckled at Rodney. I always chuckled at this because it's like, yeah, okay, both of you are underdogs. Okay, whatever you say, like. Okay,
LeBron used to do this all the time too. I can't believe I'm here, like playing in the NBA. I'm like, dude, you're 6'9", 260 pounds, one of the greatest athletes ever. Your IQ is off the charts. Like you should be here.
You're almost like engineered.
You're that good.
Like if you believe in God, God created you to do exactly what you're doing right now.
And a very good day. Yeah, the guy's as big as Karl Malone.
Yeah,
and as fast as Allen Iverson. So that's a pretty good combination. And it has the IQ of Magic Johnson.
Well,
he doesn't have much going.
Settle down there, John. Settle down. We're not talking about the Tom Brady of NBA here. Well, maybe.
Yeah, we sure are.
Well, no. That's a discussion. That's an off-season discussion. We don't need to have that right now. That's for like June 10th. Actually, no. Sorry, that's NBA Finals time. Like July 10th.
That's going to be Brady Day, right?
June 12th. That's right. Oh, yeah, Brady Day.
June 12th, yeah.
Anyways, all right, that's going to do it for us here today. Like I said, we'll be back Monday. Obviously, we will react to the Super Bowl winner and all that fun stuff. So thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you then.